A Square Podcast. I am DJ A alongside my brother Cornbread. Antonio, first of all, how are you doing? How's everything going with you, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I think for the listeners out there, this might be, I think, our 48th, 49th interview. And I get excited every time because we have some great content coming your way today. We have a friend to the show, a friend of the friend to Northside Hospital. You know what I'm saying? So we appreciate that connection there. But today we got a special guest, DJ, and that's my guy, Joe Ingle, man. What's up, man?
Yeah,
hey,
what's
man,
going on?
how are y'all doing? I appreciate y'all having me.
Amazing, man.
No
Great
problem.
to have you.
What we always do before we get into the spicy talk, we would like you to introduce yourself and let the people know a little bit about you before we get started, sir.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, I got to start off since you start on bucket list. As you can see behind me, huge Georgia fan. So I'm, we've already got the back-to-back. I'm hoping my bucket list is to watch a three-peat. So we bleed red and black out here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm got an awesome wife. Been married for 15 years. We have a great blended family of 6 kids, 5 boys and 1 girl. And she's my pride and joy. She's the as I say, she'll get mad at me, but she's the one from outer space because, man, girls are way different than boys. I mean,
Tell me about it.
Oldest or youngest?
She is right in the middle. Smack dab in the middle. So she gets it on both sides, But no, I work for a great company. I've been with the same company for 10 years. I'm in sales and work with the automotive industry, and we have a great time around the house and stuff like that. So it's a great time of year. Thanksgiving's coming up, and we have a lot to be thankful for.
All right.
So you mentioned you work for the automotive business. As you know, there was a lot of strikes and everything this year. A lot of stuff going on.
Correct.
Did that affect you? And if so, can you explain? And if not, what were your thoughts on, what was going on?
It did affect us a little bit. I'm on the other side, if you will. I worked for a couple of dealerships years and years ago. So we supply the automotive industry with services, basically. Differential fluid, fuel injection cleaners, things like that. It did affect us because obviously when customers are taking their vehicles in, they can't get parts. Right. So, we felt that hit because people aren't going in or their cars just sit there. But we get through it. We've been blessed and we just figured out a way to get through it.
Nice.
Don't really have an opinion on it. It's just, hey, man, it's part of life.
It's part of life.
Throws you a curveball and you figure it out. You know.
I like that. So Joe, like we said, it is a stressful time for some people, exciting time for some people. I think they just came out with loneliness is like a real epidemic, or what I'm saying? It's a problem with, people being lonely, especially around the holidays, with all the stresses and stuff like that. So I know you wanted to come on here and discuss some things, obviously, that you and the family and everything are going through. And hopefully our listeners out there, we reached, old age, young age, boy, girl, doesn't matter. We reached a whole demographic. So I know people can learn from your journey. So if you mind telling us, I guess, why you wanted to come on the podcast and say these words or whatever's going on with you and your family and education, sir.
Sure, man, I appreciate that. So obviously I said we have 6 kids. We lost one about 3 years ago to mental health and suicide. My son's name was Jackson. He was 16 years old, had him for just awesome 16 years. Had some signs, from him having some mental health issues prior to us losing him. But I was able to speak to a high school about a month ago. Man, it was amazing how this high school did a mental health week, because it's something that I fortunately but unfortunately had to realize it's a real thing. You said something about being lonely. Man, it's mental health is tough, man. And I firmly believe, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, 5 years ago, if you said, what is mental health? I'd have just said that person was weak. I didn't know any better. I wasn't educated. Now moving, through the things I've gone through and seeing what my son's gone through, seeing what I go through still, after losing my son, which I'll get back to that. But I just feel like in America right now, mental health is so high on the spectrum, but yet it's the hardest thing to get help with right now. Um, Going back to my son, we lost him, like I said, 3 years ago. Um, Unfortunately, now my family is left with I don't even know what the word is, the void in our lives to having to, bury our own son. We've had a great support system with friends and family and things like that. But I just want to get the word out, man. It's, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it's such a tough topic to obviously
No, you
speak
good.
on. But, losing a son and losing him that way was extremely tough on my family. All the other kids talk about it some, not as much as I feel like they should. But I think the biggest thing is, man, people have to get help. That's something that I don't know what y'all have gone through. Y'all don't know everything I've gone through, but I want people to understand. It's our motto is it's okay to not be okay. Because it's part of life. Um, the cool thing, my wife is my rock, and her and I were sitting around after my son passed, and realizing all the great things he had done through his friends. We didn't know. Um, is like as much as we like to say Jackson was an angel, which he is now, but on earth he was not an angel. He was the kid that kept getting in trouble and doing crazy things and stuff
Dang.
like that. But then when you lose a kid, man, all these other kids were reaching out to us, crying and needing help at the time. So we came up with a foundation for a couple years called JR Semicolon. And that's really, really big for me because my son's name was Jackson Royce Ingle. But we did the I or the semicolon, it looks like an I to represent his name. So when you drive around Cumming, Georgia or Atlanta or even some other states, we did T-shirts and stickers to remind people if they see that logo, hey man, it's okay to not be okay. And what that stands for, even though it's Jackson Royce Ingle, it stands for just relax and pause. We have that moment where,
Like
man, I
that.
can't get through this. Well, just take that break for a second and take that deep breath and let's get through this. So we were having meetings with all the kids and just, man, first month, all they want to do is cry and talk about Jackson. But then we started really, really getting into, the mental part of it. And all these kids would just break down and cry because they're going through things, that their parents may not know about. So just mental health is tough, man.
Thank
It's tough.
um thank you, Joe. So before we even get started, I want to make sure because you were breaking up a little bit. Are you connected to the Wi-Fi stuff? Because this is some great information. I don't want to
I believe
lose
I am. If you give
translational
me
stuff.
1 second, let me
Okay.
try to jump on it real fast. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no
Okay.
problem, no
Sorry
Yeah,
about
because
problem.
that.
we definitely, about to unpack this.
Yeah,
To
definitely.
the
A Square podcast to the people that are out there. Please click the link. It'll be in the description. asquaredpodcast.com. This will also be on all of our streaming platforms and whatnot. We have our guy Joe Ingle with us today. And we're talking about mental health, and we're talking about just a little bit of everything. And we wanted to dive into as much as we can. So for those people that are out there, if you are tuned in, if you can comment, if you can send questions or whatever you have, we'll try to get everything to you guys. So once again, thank you, Joe, for joining us and giving us all the information and everything. Antonio, what you got?
Yeah, so Joe, so let's try to unpack some of the things, that obviously that your family's going through, or I don't
Sure.
want to speculate on your son or maybe what he would have went through, right? So I have one kid, right, and he's 10. So he's going to grow up for future, probably going to be a single kid, right? I know Aaron has went, he has two kids, but they're so spread out. It seems like they're single kids. So,
Yeah, it is. It
so
is.
do you think, I guess, let's say looking back as a parent, or maybe even some of his siblings said this, did you guys see any signs? Did he say anything that kind of tipped it off, or did you tell that he was, let's say, mad or disgruntled, or he just wanted to leave Earth or anything like that?
Oh man. Yes to all the above.
Okay.
and I don't mind sharing some pretty deep things that happen if it can help somebody.
Yeah.
My son, I would say a year prior to him losing his life, actually told us that he was going to do that.
Damn.
Told us the exact way he did it. And it's one of those things you want to believe it, but you don't want to believe it. Um, so obviously we were talking earlier, I've got a little bit of a blended family. So he had come to live with us. He was having, just a tough time in life, failing every single thing and this, that, and the other. And he ended up coming to live with us for a couple years. And man, he was playing football, making great grades, making good decisions. And then all of a sudden just took a tough turn in life. Um, and man, I got the phone call one night, that he had passed away. And then a couple of days later, you don't want to ask how, but you want to know as a parent. And it was the exact same way he told us he would do it.
Okay. That's tough. So what's the grieving process you've seen so far? Like so you hear that your son has committed suicide, right? Do the police come and do an investigation? Is it, do you have guilt? How does does that turmoil come between you and your wife, or you being a
Yeah.
parent of other kids now? Cause you might be more protective now. They might say
Sure.
they want to go to
Sure.
McDonald's and you're like, no, you good. You're going to stay in this house so I can watch you. So just tell us
That's
through
right.
that process after the fact.
Okay. So when he passed away, he was not at our house. He was at my
Okay.
ex-wife's house at the time. But yes, I mean, obviously the cops are there. Yes, they do investigations. Um, I am now I don't want to call myself the helicopter dad, but man, I was already strict because this way my dad raised me. My curfews growing up was my grade. So ninth grade, I had to be
Right.
home at 9 o'clock, all the way up to, being a senior at 12, which my kids aren't going to like that. But that's going to be on them as well. It's just, hey, that's what Pops told me to do,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the grieving part, man, that's the hard part, man. There's days I wake
Yeah.
up 3 years later, and you go through, you're sad. One day you're mad. There's times, if I'm being honest, I get mad at him sometimes, man. I don't get to hug him. I don't get to see where he would be right now. So the grief process is the hardest part that I deal with now, just because he's not here. I mean, so there's some days that you don't really feel it. It's you're getting along really well. You're driving along the road and you see something, or he's got this one hat that he wore 24/7. And when I see that hat, it gets you, man. It gets you. It's a black hat with the Nike white swoosh, that even one of my 13-year-old identical twin boys wears now. But it hits that heart, man.
Cool.
It hits you hard.
Cool. One of the things that I can say that I appreciate you saying on this podcast today is that you've spoken out and you've talked to young people. Yeah. And you've gotten you've gotten the feelings from them about how they feel about him, and then that process of the grieving from them, and then how they feel. I want to ask you, how did you gather I want to say like the courage, right? Because the courage to get up and to speak to young people. How did you gather that courage to do that? Because there's so many people that some people don't even want to talk about it. Some people don't even want to. I kind of look at my grandmother as sometimes who lost, children, and I speak to her about it. And even though, they may have been older, she still looks at them like they're babies, no matter what, no matter what it is. And I was like, would you like to visit, the grave site or whatever? And she can't do it. And so there are different types of people that grieve differently. Was this a part of like the grieving process to you? Or how were you able to gather that courage to do that?
Whew. I don't know if it was so much the grieving process. I looked at it as, if I can help one person that's struggling at that time, to not commit suicide, just to be blunt about it, that's what I wanted to do. I felt like I spoke at Lambert High School about a month and a half ago. And really, man, on the drive there that morning, I just remember like it was yesterday. I'm driving down the road and I'm saying a prayer that I can just talk without crying, like the ugly crying, not, a tear here and there.
Yeah.
I'm talking, obviously like Georgia, I said earlier, I love them. When we lost Alabama in overtime, I'm out there just crying on the back porch, ugly crying.
Yeah.
I wanted to get through it to help somebody. And man, we did 2 sessions because it was 2 different times. And it was a voluntary thing for kids to come in. And I had a little slideshow, this, that, and the other. And we have a tree that's planted at the high school. And it wasn't planned. It just happened. And I look out the window and I can literally see that tree that represents in memory of my son while I'm talking. And then as I'm speaking to these kids and I show a picture of my son's grave, and it's something that I really, really thought hard and long about getting that personal for me. But then I thought, there are a lot of people in this world that talk about suicide. I'm going to kill myself. But they don't really know what that end game is. It's final. So I guess to answer that story of all the rambling, it was more of okay, I've lost my son. I have to accept that. But I'm going to put myself second, and I'm going to do it through him. If someone can learn from what we've gone through and what my son did, then, man, it's worth my tears. It is.
Understand. A Square podcast listeners, we got Joe Ingle on right now. He's discussing about some mental health issues and, losing his son to suicide. So, Joe, did you say your son was 16 when he lost his life? So he'll be 19 now, or he was 13
He would be
and he'll
19.
be 16? He would be 19.
He would have been 19. Yeah, correct.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so how do you guys let's say celebrate his life, right? Do you guys do something on his birthday, or do you still have, let's say, I don't know, his room, or like what's some things that you guys do to keep him around and everybody's spirits and upbeat and everything?
Yeah. Man, my son wore Jordans like they were nothing. So I've got his favorite pair of Jordans at my house. When we have Christmas or a dinner, sometimes we'll put him in a chair just to, represent him being there. We've got a little spot in the house with his pictures and things. For his birthday, I drive to his gravesite. I just sit there for, however long, talk to him. I put a little cupcake on his gravesite.
Nice.
And, just have that one-on-one time with him. And as I said, with the tree that we have at the high school just down the road, there's nights I drive by there on the way home and just sit there for a little while and just reflect, man.
Understand.
But I talk about them all the time. I love the way my wife said it. She'll say, "Hey, we have 6 kids. We don't say it's 5 because we'll always have 6.
Right.
And if they ask her age, she always says we have one that's forever 16."
For sure.
So,
we do have a question for you. Somebody asked, do you think COVID and isolation was a player in all of his mental health crisis?
I do, man. I do. These kids, we were talking earlier how you and I grew up. Man, I couldn't imagine having the things that these kids go through taken away from them.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of the people that I know, kids were in college or high school, didn't get to finish their football or baseball season, didn't get to walk and graduate.
Crazy.
So, these kids these days, I just feel like they have so much more on them. As I told you earlier, I got 13-year-old twins. And, look, I understand we all had to wear masks. We had to do certain things we didn't want to do. But, man, imagine being 10 years old at the time, being told, hey, you can't go to school. You can't do this. You can't, you couldn't see people's emotions for what, a year because we all had masks on. So, yeah, I feel like it, I don't know for sure, but I
might
feel
have
like it had a little bit to play.
intensified. It might have intensified feelings.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. Yeah.
I
I
do.
understand that.
Yeah, I've talked about that before on the podcast. Like I said, my son was he was in kindergarten, so he had his first full year of going to school, right? And then first grade, second grade was COVID. So third
Yeah.
grade, he went to school. Everything's back open now. So he went to school third grade. So I asked him, hey, how was school? How's all this? He was like, it's straight. I was like, well, you haven't seen kids in forever. How was
Yeah.
that? He said, I said, how was the little kids? Because I'm thinking still, when he was in kindergarten, he was around new people and older people, right? So now I flip the tables on him. I'm like, okay, now you're the third grader. How was it being around younger kids, right? Second, first, kindergartner. He said, oh, they're kind of weird. I said, what do you mean they're kind of weird? He said, yeah, it's just they don't know how to, and it clicked. It's like, because that's their first year
Yeah.
going
There
to
you go.
going to school, right? So think of
Yeah.
it, you're a second grader, and that's the first time you've been around anybody like that. So it makes
Wow.
sense. It can change the trajectory of, let's say, how you interact with people, your life, or
Definitely.
bring that extra anxiety. So
And it's like, I
Correct.
think about that, I asked my son the same thing, like during that time. And I'm like, my son, he's 16 now. I'm thinking about during that time, I'm like, so how do you feel? You're not going to school, you're not, around a whole bunch of people, so on and so forth. And he's like, they got FaceTime. We got FaceTime, we got PlayStation, so it's like the times are different, but I'm like, yes, that's true, son. But the conversation that you have with people one on one in person is
Yeah.
different than you have
Yeah.
with somebody via camera phone. You know what I mean? And I think that now he understands that more because, like, when I'm with my grandmother and I'm on FaceTime, he's like, I want to hug her. You know what I
There you
mean?
go.
You,
There
you
you
know
go.
that hug, that love. You know what I mean? Like all those things play a key factor in all of this. So it's the A Square podcast, guys. Again, if you guys are just joining us, we are talking about mental health. We have my guy always Antonio, aka Cornbread. We have our guy Joe with us today. Antonio, what else you got for us, man?
I do. I got one more question for you, and then kind of something that I just thought about. So we'll go with the
Sure.
question first. So first off, people are hitting us up saying, "Hey, there are mental institutions or ways to give people help." And so with that, I would like to know, Joe. Let's say there's a listener out there right now, and their kid, boy or girl, just said, "Hey, I want to kill myself." Is there any advice, if you could, let's say, redo it again, or anything that you've seen, or maybe talk to somebody and they gave you some advice now? Is there anything that you would say to the listener out there who might deal with this, today, tomorrow, through the holidays, or 5 years from now?
Sure. Well, don't take it lightly, first of all. It's when I hear people say that now, because I get phone calls from other parents. Hey, my kid, is going through this. Can you talk to my kid? Or, hey, my kid just told me they want to kill themselves. What do I do? The first thing, don't take it lightly. They got to get help. We had talked about my 13-year-olds. They went to a place called Summit Ridge. They had some tough times last year with bullying at school. Started some self-harm and things like that because they didn't know how to deal with it. So we had them get help at a place, outpatient. And the thing is, they just went and talked about feelings. And I think that's the biggest thing. And maybe I skipped that is A, don't take it lightly, but B, man, you got to talk to your kids. There's coping strategies. There's dialogue that as either a parent or a friend that they got to reach out to somebody, man. I've got obviously I'm not going to say his name, but one of my best friends right now is going through some tough times. He's extremely depressed, doesn't know why, has a great life, and it's tough for me to talk to him because he has told me that he's had that thought of taking his own life, and for me it's a trigger. It's hard for me to talk about that because I couldn't imagine losing another, family member or a close friend to suicide. But the shirts "Be Kind," man, that's my favorite shirt now because I don't know what you guys are going through, man. We're sitting here, we're talking. When we get off of this, we might have to go and deal with something tough right now. However, if I know you're going through something and you come to me and say, Joe, man, I need help. We got to be there for each other, man. We got to be there for each other. We got to be there for our kids and our friends.
Appreciate that.
And I wonder does that trauma come from the trauma of like people not being able to be honest, like the brutal honest about what they're going through? I wonder why that's so hard for people to come out and talk about their feelings. Because I know what I was going through, as a young person. When I was young, I would get frustrated with certain things. I'll be honest on this podcast, as I have before. I was always told, "Oh, you're gonna get sent to the crazy house. If you keep acting like that, you're gonna be crazy."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like it was beat in my head that if I spoke about my feelings and I spoke about certain things that I were feeling at the time or cared about, so on and so forth, that I would be deemed as crazy, or I would get put on the crazy pills, certain
Sure.
little things like that, because of, I think, the era, that I came up in. I wonder if it's interesting to me. It's like, I wonder if there's something that we can provide to people, that we can talk to people like, like you said, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk to your friends. It's okay to vent your feelings, and it's okay to receive those feelings. That's why I can appreciate the fact when you say that you went and you spoke to younger people, and I applaud that, man, because it cannot be easy. It cannot be easy to do that.
Man, it's not, but and you hit it on the money, man. My dad, I'm 47 years old. My dad, I don't remember seeing him cry, but maybe 3 times in my life. He taught me, you don't cry. You be tough. You do this. You do that. And then the older I've gotten and the things that I've dealt with, man, I'm the crier now. Like it's okay to cry. I tell people that. Look, man, we're human.
Well, you're a Falcons fan, so yeah, I get it.
Don't do that, Antonio. Don't do that. Don't do it.
It makes sense. What I'm just telling them it makes sense. I'm just telling them it makes sense.
Cry after the Super Bowl. I cried after Georgia lost. but no, man, it's look, I'll share something very personal to me right now that I'm trying. I've always been against medicines, the crazy pills, if you will. I finally had to say, look, man, I need help. I can't do it on my own. So I just recently started taking, some medicine through my doctor, seeing great results with it. And it takes that edge off that, look, I'm in sales, so I'm constantly going,
Anxiety.
I'm that guy. Yeah, man. And anxiety is so tough on people. So I finally said, look, man, I'm going to go talk to somebody. I'll be honest, him and I were not a fit, but it was great for that 1 hour to see, hey, man, I can go out and talk to some stranger about what I'm going through, and he doesn't judge me. He just, hey, man, why don't you try coping this way, and why don't you try this method? And it was amazing. I had about 2 months ago, I had just a day I woke up, and it was one of those days where I missed my son. I was angry at the world. I didn't talk to my wife all day, and we were in the same room watching the Falcons. Probably another reason why I don't want to talk, but I just didn't say a word to her, and I wasn't mad at her. But she looked at me and she says, "Did I do something wrong?" And I said, "No, I'm having that day, And we all have those days." I told the doctor that, and he looked at me and says, "But you know what? You choose to have that day." And I thought, yes and no. I didn't choose to wake up feeling this way. I didn't choose for my son to do what happened. But yes, you're right. It clicked. I am choosing this. So he said, look, go walk, take a deep breath, hence just relax and pause, and see if you can, figure a way to feel better. But man, I'm all about taking a medicine if you have to. I'm all about being kind, man, because we don't know what people are going through.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. First off, from the A Square family, man, we want to commend your courage for coming on here and speaking truth to power, and giving people out there, especially, like I said, especially around the holidays, this gets rough for people. Everyone doesn't have family to be around and receive that love, So,
and like you said, Antonio, that's all of us. Yeah, that's all of from every generation. Again, I literally just like a few days ago, I had this conversation with my grandmother where she's showing pictures of her mom, her sister, and like everybody's gone from that, from that generation.
Yeah.
But then as she sat down at, my daughter's birthday party, she's sitting with my daughter's great grandparents, which is a part of that age group, and her grandparents that are there. She's like, this is a whole different thing. I've never seen nothing like this. And she was just grateful and just thinking like, we're all gonna go through this. She was like, it doesn't stop. It's just a matter of how you deal with it and how you move forward and keeping the people in your thoughts, because that's how we keep them alive.
So Joe, each episode, I think we'll make this 184. 185. So we'll make this episode 185.
Yes.
And we name episodes different names, right? So I think it only is fitting that we name this episode after your son, man. So
I agree.
Please let us know. Obviously say your son's name again, and then if you got any contact, like I don't know if you're on social media or email, whatever, so people can contact you, right? Because they might have more questions after that. So let us know.
So my son's name is Jackson Royce Ingle. My email address, don't mind giving that. Of course, people are gonna make fun of me. They're gonna see how old I really am with this email address.
Daddy.
Don't
do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Say AOL.
I was gonna say, if you say AOL,
I knew where you were going with
here.
Joseph dial up 1 2 3.
Exactly.
What?
We're going back to podcast 184. It's so it's my last name. It's INGLE, the number 2, the number 4 at Hotmail. So it's Ingle24 at Hotmail.
I'm not
it's
mad
not
at
too
that.
far from AOL.
I'm not mad at that. I had a Hotmail.
Keyword had.
Yeah. Okay.
It's one of those, man, everybody knows it. I don't want to get away from it.
Come on now. Yeah, you never know. You never know.
If there is someone listening, man, all jokes aside, email me. I don't mind reaching out. Give me your phone number. I'm the, how did I say this? When this all first happened, I had a gentleman reach out to me and said, look, you're part of a club that you don't want to be in. And I loved how he said this. He goes, it's not your responsibility to help, but it is. And man, that stuck with me. So if someone's out there going through something that they just feel is so big for them and they can't do it, send me an email tonight. I will call you tonight. I will talk to you. I'm here for you.
Awesome, man. We appreciate it, Joe. We appreciate you, man, from the A Square podcast. You are a part of this family now, and anything that you do, but whether it's community wise, whatever it is, we're going to be here to support you. The only thing that I cannot support is the Georgia Bulldogs, because
wow.
as a listen.
Nice knowing y'all.
So listen, here's the crazy part. Earlier this summer, as a DJ for Illinois, we had 3 4-star recruits from Georgia and 2 from Florida. And I do not think we secured but one person. And it was not from Georgia. It was from Florida. And, we're like the Falcons of college football. Right?
Easy now. No, that's called Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
That could be true, too. But
Right.
I definitely appreciate you, man. We appreciate you for joining us and sharing your story and everything, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys, man.
And for the live listeners out there, we still gonna go live. So Joe's about to drop off, and we still gonna record our regular show. But we just want to give y'all that quick little nugget, like I said, before we hit the holiday season. So thank you again, Joe, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
we appreciate you,
man.
Man.
Night. And I appreciate it.
well.
Hey, I'm gonna leave you with that right there. Go Dogs.
I love it.
Y'all have a good night, man. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Have a good one.
Good Thanksgiving.
Thank
Joe.
you. You as well.
Thanks, man.